Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious or you've got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty, and this is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I will be chatting away madly about it's that time of year again. No, year, what am I doing? Month, sorry. We've done the years. We're just focusing on the months now. Oh dear, I think my head is just a little bit scrambled right now. The camera's fallen off 3 times. It's a phone and it's propped up with various different bits of furniture. My son decided he was going to help me make tea, so thank you, my little dormouse. But started pouring in the milk before I'd realised what he was doing, and so it's a bit on the milky side because he flooded it. So, but they are nicely occupied. I can now focus on the books and the videos, and hopefully we're not going to have too many disasters. Milky tea, but it's fine. It's nice and hot. It's okay. We can cope with it. So on this channel, if you don't know, I only do one shot. I do not do any editing. It just goes straight on there. Because my laptop is old and decrepit. I have the power of pause, so hopefully I don't need to ramble too much and shuffle my books around. So here we go. Let's fingers crossed for small chaos and not massive ones. Cheers, 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 cheers. Lovely. Okay, so it's a start video. So I'm going to be talking about what the books I read in January and kind of comparing them to kind of look at my reading month overall. And this is also where I look at how did it compare to my TBR. So if you want to know what my January TBR was, I will link the video here. I'm going to link it here. I really should have worked out which side it is by now. I did at one point work out which side it was that it goes, but I have since forgotten. Okay, I'm presuming my sons have caught a star on something because I've just heard really loud shouting. So if you hear loud shouting, it's either annoyance or joy of whatever they're making Mario do. Right, I need my notebook to help my brain because it's mulch. So, January, these were all the books on my TBR. We have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which is a YA contemporary. We have Take a Hint, Dani Browm by Tallia Hibbert, which is a contemporary romance. We have Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen, which is a YA fantasy. We have The Juvenilia or The History of England by Jane Austen, which is a classic. We have The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson, which is a middle grade fantasy. And we have Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan, which is also a middle grade fantasy. So let's see how I did. So The Hate You Give was a lucky ladder, and it was one of the popular reads on my TBR. Take a Hint, Dani Browm was a Feagle, so I got to steal a book from under my bed, which is delightful. Violet Made of Thorns was it was a theme card to do with plants and earth. History of England was a genre spin and I got classic. The Girl Who Speaks Bear was 30-second prompt and I got an author you want more of because I want to read more Sophie Anderson. And Percy Jackson was a worrying worm because I needed to choose a book that had 6 words in the title. Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. So there we go. The Hate You Give. I read it. I am so pleased because I have been meaning to read this one for so long. It has been on several TBRs and I needed to be in the right space to read it, and I absolutely was in the right space to read it this month. I was able to give it my full attention. Take a Hint, Dani Browm. I also read, so we're doing well. Violet Made of Thorns, I read. That was the one buddy read that I managed to get on here, which I did with Chloe from Phantom of the Pages and Vadania from Vadania Silver Scribe. The History of England, I didn't read it. I didn't read it. I could have done. It's not even this whole book. I mean, I know it's kind of deceptive because they're tiny but have loads of words in. I do want to read it. It's kind of like, it's the only Jane Austen I haven't read, and it's like her early writings. I'm running up the stairs. So I it's like my last fresh Jane Austen. I've read the other ones countless of times, but not for a while. I haven't read any Jane Austen for a while. And I think that is because I have been on BookTube and I have been reading so much more rather than going over my old favourites. However, I do want my brain to get back into Jane. Ha ha ha. That's amused me. I do. I want to kind of like enjoy her work again and kind of read this while I'm in that kind of appreciating Jane Austen mode. But this month wasn't the right time. Like, I hadn't planned to read a classic this month. I mean, it's on my goals. It's on my goals to read classics over the year. But January, I hadn't planned it in. So I'm very much, the mood can't change. It was not my decided mood for this month. And so I thought, well, I could read her, but I'm just going to be doing it to tick a box. I'm not going to be enjoying it fully at this point. So it seemed silly to try and do it. And I'll kind of come on to why this kind of just feels a little bit like I'm shooting myself in the foot. So we'll come on to that. Let's examine the other ones. So The Girl Who Speaks Bear, I started it and I haven't got very far because one, I am so excited about this book. Again, I really want to be in the right set to enjoy it and I didn't want to rush it. Also, I was waiting for this book to come in from the library so I could kind of read them together for a project that I'm doing, which I will explain in a future video that could be coming, or this one might, it might already be up, or this one might be first. I haven't decided how what videos I'm going to put where, but I have already filmed that one. So I will link it when that video comes up. If you're interested, you might not care. You might be like, shut up and get on with the stats. So, you know, whatever. So I didn't read this one either. And Percy Jackson and the Titan's Kiss, I did read. So I read 4 of the 6. And it was all like, there's no massive ones on here. It was all very achievable. But I had other books that I wanted to read, which are here. So these are another 4 that I'm going to be adding to the list. So I didn't complete my TBR. I'm quickly going to talk about my plans for my TBR in the future before I go into pulling the punishment. So I have mentioned before that in March I'm going to change my game. So I'm going to have a new, not massively changed, but kind of like have the board like updated and done nicely rather than this tiny draft scribbled version that I've done. And then I'm going to do like a proper video explaining the rules with the new board so I don't have to explain the rules every time I do my TBR. And I'm also going to make a few little changes and kind of set a few things that I haven't really thought about in stone a bit more. And I think one of the things I'm going to do is think about, like, do I absolutely have to read these 6 books or can I be more flexible with it? If it's something that's a punishment or a worrying worm, that is meant to hurt me. So I will keep those in. But I really felt that I'm reading because I want to enjoy myself. I do fun book games because I want to enjoy myself and it's sort of part challenge. But at the same time, I don't want to force myself to be reading things that I'm not ready to read right now because that just kind of seems detrimental and not fun. But at the same time, I don't want to be like pulling punishments out every month when it just seems a bit crazy to be doing that. So I need to rethink the game slightly to make it work better for me. So that will be happening in March. So let's talk about the other books that I read. So I have 4 here. So that gives me a total of 8, which is nice because that is one of my goals. I wanted to be reading less. I wanted to be reading, to be having more time to do other things, which I will get in a moment. And the other things I want to be giving myself more time to do are reviews in Storygraph. I want to be logging my reading on Storygraph more and using it because I think it's such a brilliant app. I really enjoy it. I'm definitely using it a lot as a TBR because when I hear people mention books, I used to like write the book down or take a photo and have it like in my notes list on my phone. But actually just whacking it straight into Storygraph is so much better because I can see the picture of the book, I can see the editions, I can see if it links to a series, I can see if it kind of fits an author, and it's all stored on there and it just makes me so happy. So I'm using that really well. But I also enjoy the fact that it gives you like moods. So you might be like, I want to read something that's adventurous and really emotional and intense. And then you can click those boxes and then it will give you a list in your TBR of what books that fits into, which I just think is so cool. Anyway, I have, apart from one, because I just need to kind of get my thoughts together a little bit more, I have put all these books into Storygraphs. So I'm really proud of myself. I have also found time to do a little bit more kind of book journaling in here as well. So I've been able to do like a little bit of drawing, which made me really happy. So I feel very satisfied. I might not have hit my TBR, but I feel satisfied with my other goals. So the books that I wanted to also add in are Rumblestar by Abby Elphinstone, which is a middle grade fantasy, and this was a buddy read with Vadania Silverscribe, and it is the first book in the Unmapped Chronicles. I also read Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars, a dangerous trans girl's confession memoir by Kai Chen Thom. So this is a book that I wanted to read in December, but I wasn't in the right space to read it in December because I read kind of the first bit and it was giving me kind of like quite surreal vibes, and I couldn't quite cope with that at that time. Whereas I really felt drawn to it this month and I started reading, and then I was like, yes, no, I definitely want to keep reading this book this month. So there we go. I read that one too. And it looks really tiny, but it actually took me a lot longer to read because there's a lot in there. And I needed to like put it down and take a break, do some breathing before going back to it. I also read The Sad Ghost Club 2 by Liza Meddings. This is a YA contemporary graphic novel that deals with mental health. And finally, I read The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which is a historical fiction set between the late 60s to the late 80s. And this was a buddy read with, see if I can remember everyone, Maria from Read Find Books. We originally kind of saw that we both had this and we decided it would be really nice to do a buddy read. And so MJ on her channel really kindly gave us a little thread for doing this buddy read, and Tara from Tara Talks Books joined in as well, and we've also had some chat with Tiffany from Jan TBR, and Bandana Book Mum, Tallia from Bandana Book Mum is currently reading this at the moment. So there was a lot of chat on there, which was really good fun. Okay, so here we go. This is what I read in the month of January. So that is a total of 8 books. Right, my first... Oh, I need to do punishment. Punishment. So this is going to be for March. Because February, I already spoke about that. I've got to have a reward for February. But if I don't use the reward in February, then that reward will go over to March instead. And I think it's probably going to fit in March better, actually. Because I feel like I don't want to swap any books on my TBR, so that reward kind of wouldn't work. It was to swap a book for a childhood favourite, or reread a book. Okay, I've got one. I feel really nervous because March is a middle grade March, so I don't know what it's going to make me do. Okay, this is fun, but it's going to be a lot of admin and feels quite complicated. So this is a book from not a book, this is a punishment from some wonderful people on the Shelf Space Discord. So that is Bridget, who I've buddy read quite a lot of books with this year. She had some fabulous punishment ideas. Not so many rewards. I mean, come on, Bridget, give me some really good rewards. That'd be helpful. And also Pondering Books. So thanks, Bridget, and Pondering Books with this. Read a book with a recipe in it. Then vlog making and eating that food. I mean, great. So there we go. We've got an unplanned video idea in here where you can all laugh at my abysmal cooking. and I need to find a book in March that will have a recipe in it for me to make some food from. So that will be interesting. That will be interesting. I could cheat and stick a Roald Dahl in because I know there's a Roald Dahl cookbook. But no, let's see if I can make this work. Okay, so that's my punishment. There we go. That's what I'll be doing in March. Thanks, Bridget, and Pondering at Books. Okay, cracking on with the first stack. And we're going to talk about the sizes. So I have read 2 books. I'm going to have to work out which one's which now, aren't I? Oh, no, I know. Okay, this looks cool. Right, I have read 2 books that were mouse-sized. That is the Fierce Femmes book and the Sad Ghost Club 2. Sad Ghost Club would automatically be put as a mouse because it is a graphic novel. So that's my 2 mice. And then I have 5 goats here. So a goat is, I didn't explain. So I link creatures to my book sizes because I'm a visual person. So my goats are anything that are 301 pages to 400 pages. Mice are 150 to 300. 151 to 300 pages. So these are my goats. Take a Hint, Dani Browm, Violet Made of Thorns, Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse, Rumblestar and the Vanishing Half. And then one book was cow-sized, and that cow-sized, which is 401 to 500 pages, and that is The Hate U Give. So no massive books. I usually have at least one elephant kind of in what I read because I tend to read a lot of adult epic fantasy. But I didn't read any adult epic fantasy this month. Crazy times. Right, you don't need to see me play the books around. Yeah, that sentence made no sense. You don't need me to play around and watch me putting the books back, is what I meant to say there. Okay, so the next one I'm going to be talking about is the age ranges. So I read 2 middle grade. Helpfully they're together. So that is Rumblestar and Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. I read 3 YA, which are The Hate U Give, Violet Made of Thorns and the Sad Ghost Club 2. And then my 3 adult books are Take a Hint, Dani Browm, Fierce Femmes and The Vanishing Half. Okay, series-wise, I've started another 2. So The Hate U Give, not too tricky. It is there's a companion novel to this one, so there's like a pre-story, which is Concrete Rose, which is the final Angie Thomas book that I have to read. So I'm really excited. I'm pretty sure I'll be wanting to get that out and read that soon. I need to earn that. It's under my bed. So that feels very doable. And Rumblestar, as I mentioned, first book in the Unmapped Chronicles that I'm buddy reading with Vadania. And this is fine. It's a series we've both wanted to read for a while. The library has the rest of the books, so I'm being really well behaved and just borrowing the rest from the library. I may own them at a later date because it's definitely a series of books that I want to read with my children. I progressed with 2 series, so that is always good. So I've read the second book in the Browm sisters, which is a bunch of companion novels going through each one of the sisters and their romances. So I have the final one left, which is Eve Browm. And I can't remember what she needs to do. Grow up. Grow up? Act your age. There you go. Act your age, Eve Browm. And I don't have that one, so I'm not sure when I'm going to finish the series. And I also progressed with the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, which I'm really enjoying rereading with my brand new covers. They're so pretty. And I have 2 more in this series to read, so I'm hoping to progress with this one and get this one finished soon. I could have counted Violet Made of Thorns, because I think I think it's a duology and there's a second book due, but I'm not really feeling excited about continuing the series, so I'm not counting that as part of my series. I don't really have any plans to continue with it. And I have finished the Sad Ghost Club duology. I haven't heard if there is a 3rd book that's due to come out, so for the moment, unless I hear of it, for the moment I'm counting this as finished. So there we go. 1 finished, 2 progressed, 2 started. That's fair. We'll see how we go. So genres, I read 3 fantasy books: Violet Made of Thorns, Percy Jackson, The Titan's Thief, and Rumblestar. I read 2 contemporary books, The Sad Ghost Club and The Hate You Give. And then I have 3 books which are different genres. So that is 1 historical fiction, which is The Vanishing Half, 1 romance, which is Take a Hint, Dani Browm, and 1 magical realism, which is Fierce Femmes. So I realised I didn't mention when I was talking about age ranges. So one of my goals was to read more middle grade, and I wanted every month a third of what I read, or third to half, to be middle grade. So I read 2, which gives me, it's a quarter. So not hitting that goal, but that's okay. Format, I've read 1 graphic novel, The Sad Ghost Club 2, and the rest are all novels. So that's 7 novels. In terms of looking up if I'm reading more from global majority authors, I have read 3 books that are white Eurocentric, and I have 5 books which are from authors of a global majority. That's The Vanishing Half, Violet Made of Thorns, The Hate You Give, Take a Hint, Dani Browm, and Fierce Femmes. And my goal was to have half of what I read global majority, and this is 5/8, so very happy with this. So the next thing I want to look at is something that I've changed for 2023, and this is thanks to watching Kemi's video from Violet Pages, where she spoke about her 2023 goals, and something she spoke about really resonated with me, and I'm like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. So I spoke about last time that I want to kind of look and see kind of like, am I reading a range of authors in terms of are they female authors, are they male authors, and am I reading any trans authors? Because I want to read more trans authors and kind of promote them for the same reason I do global majority books, to show publishers that we want these stories. But as Kemi mentioned, like, it's sometimes quite difficult to look specifically at own voices. So when you're reading stories about someone with a disability, for example, it really kind of resonates more if it's someone where it's their own voice, like they have experience of this and kind of have a personal journey to share and kind of speak with some authority on the subject, rather than someone sort of taking it and not necessarily doing a good job of kind of showing what it's like for that person. I think some people can, and I think it is, but you definitely need to do your research. You need to research, you need to have like reader groups, and you need to listen. And I think that is definitely something that should be the editor's job, and kind of the publishing industry should kind of be more aware of own voices / have you had reading groups? Have you spoken to people who have had these experiences, and do they feel that you are doing a good representation in the work that you are putting out? So when we put that out to the public, are we giving them kind of a good representation so they can experience this? That's, I think, should be their job rather than our job as a reader to try and uncover. It's a lot easier when it kind of says explicitly in the acknowledgements that it is an own voice story. But when it doesn't, you then start doing your own research, and it can start feel a little bit like you're prying into someone's personal life. That was the point that Kemi made about it being really difficult, and about it kind of feeling a little bit like you're snooping on them. And I agree. I'm like, actually, you don't need to tell me what you identify as. That is your personal choice. I will know if you want to tell me, because it will be in the acknowledgements. It will say, inspired by their heritage, or it will say is a proud trans woman, or something like that in the acknowledgement page. If it doesn't, then it's probably not something they're wanting to shout about, not because they're ashamed of it, but more just because they want it to be about the story and not necessarily about them and their experience, which is completely valid. So what I'm doing instead, this is a very long-winded explanation, is I am looking at, do the books I'm reading have a diverse protagonist? So that can be anything from any kind of group of people that are more marginalised and we don't find represented enough in books. So in terms of books that have a diverse protagonist, I have read 6 books that have a diverse protagonist, which I will show you. So Vanishing Half, we look at Black lives in here. Violet Made of Thorns doesn't have diverse protagonist. There are some characters in here that are there is a character who is either bi or lesbian, I'm not quite sure which, but she's very much a side character, so it doesn't count. The Hate You Give, very much looking at and exploring race in here and showing a story from a Black point of view. Take a Hint, Dani Browm, we have a Black and character from Pakistan heritage in here. Fierce Femmes, we have a trans woman and we also have Asian protagonist in here. The Sad Ghost Club, we have characters dealing with depression and anxiety. Percy Jackson, we have a neurodivergent character. Percy and his friends have dyslexia and ADHD. So 6 of the 8 books there. So that's 2 Black, 1 Asian, 2 trans. Vanishing Half, although it's not one of the main protagonists as such when you're looking at the family, they are a very central character in the book, so I think that absolutely counts. And I thought it was a really again, I'm not speaking from authority on this, but whilst reading it I felt it was a really good representation of a trans man in this book, especially in the time period. So 2 trans, 1 mental health, 1 book with both what was I writing here? Oh, 1 book with both Asian and Black characters, and 1 book that has a neurodivergent character. So quite a good mixture of books this month. I definitely felt that it was quite a heavy month considering the books that I read. Like, they're not particularly big, but they really packed a punch. I also haven't spoken about one that I'm part of the way through reading, but it was kind of like a combination of, because I tend to read several books on the go at the same time. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to put the Sad Ghost Club in here, and I kind of picked it up and I was like, I think I just need to read a book that's going to kind of give me just some good feels, because I'm just feeling there's a lot of heavy topics that have been dealt with, and the books were brilliant and I really loved them. I'm like, I just need a break. Even though the Sad Ghost Club is dealing with a heavy topic, there is as well, it does give you kind of, it was more of a joyful feel to it and kind of a lighter tone to it, more of a comfort book. Okay, let's look at another stat. So 6 of these books I own: Vanishing Half, Violet Made of Thorns, The Hate You Give, Take a Hint, Dani Browm, Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse, and Rumblestar. And 2 books were from the library, and that was The Sad Ghost Club 2 and Fierce Femmes. Only 1 reread this month, and that is Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. The other 7 were new to me reads. And finally, we are here at my least favourite book and my favourite book of the month. So, my least favourite book, and this month it just wasn't as good as the others. It was a book that's just, I didn't really enjoy it. And that is Violet Made of Thorns. So this is really disappointing. So I'm so pleased I read this with Vadania and with Cloe, because it was really good to kind of chat with them. And we kind of read it in 3 different parts. We sort of like read up to so we read up to chapter 8, and then we read up to 18, and then we read to the end, which was 28. And like the first 2 parts we were kind of just enjoying. It was really fun. We were enjoying the magical world, we were enjoying the characters, we were enjoying the story, the intrigue, but we all kind of felt by the end of it we didn't really like it. So that's a shame, and it is basically to do with, I personally found the end very muddled. I wasn't really convinced by the motivations of our protagonist. She just seemed very conflicting. The love interest seemed very conflicting. Like neither of them seemed to be like sure exactly about what they were doing or what they were fighting or what the purpose was. They just seem to be much more invested in the kind of the power play between them. And they're pretty toxic relationship, and the relationship did feel toxic. Like I understand having a spiky, cynical character, and I understand having you know, the opposite passions of kind of attraction and hatred. But there needs to be some kind of care in there as well for you to convince me that they actually love each other. I feel they're very attracted to each other, but I don't necessarily know if they love each other because they don't actually seem to like each other. And it just felt really weird. I also kind of wanted more from the villain. I wanted more story behind them rather than them just being a villain. And the best character was Camilla in this for me. I also quite like Dante as well, and there was another character that I won't mention because it would be a spoiler. But I was intrigued by them. But basically, like, if this book was written about Camilla, or if she wrote a book about Camilla, I would read that one. But I'm really not interested in what happens next, and it's such a shame because there were lots of things that I did enjoy about this, like at the beginning, but just kind of the direction the story took and kind of like the ending, it just kind of, it lost me, and I'm just like, nah. But you know, I enjoyed the tower. I enjoyed the kind of the idea of the seer magic. That was really fun. And unfortunately, look, the pretty pages. We've got this wonderful kind of like sunset, dark blue into purple into sort of like this orangey pinky coral color. And it's just, I love their hard, like when you take the cover off, I love, it's got this wonderful rooftops underneath, so it's such a pretty book. But I'm never going to reread it, and I think I'm gonna have to pass it on to someone that will appreciate it, and will love it. I am gonna keep you get the little fairy loot letter and art in there as well, and the interview with the author, and I always keep these in the books, so I'll keep that in there as well, so whoever gains it can have those. So yeah, this is my least favourite, and it's gonna go at some point. Sad times, but hey ho, not everything's gonna work. So what is my favourite book gonna be? What is my favourite? Now this, it wasn't difficult because there is one that was my favourite, from the way I was gripped by the story, from how much I was invested in the protagonist, and from the writing and how it dealt with things and the emotional impact it gave me. But I really did enjoy so many of the books that I read, apart from Violet Made of Thorns, for different reasons, and they gave me different feelings. So I feel I kind of need to, they all gave me really good things, and like they really helped me balance out my month, and I had a great time reading overall. So if you haven't already, please do look at my January wrap up where I talk about them all in more detail, about why I love them, because I want them all to get loved. They all deserve love. But I have to pick a favourite. And so the book that wins it for me is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. The hype is real. The hype is real. I expected it to be. I didn't expect anything less because of how much I loved On the Come Up. And yeah, if you haven't read The Hate You Give, you absolutely should. It's so relevant. When was this written? It doesn't feel that recent now. Just because of how much crazy stuff goes. 2017. So yeah, it was written in 2017. And all the stuff in here is still so relevant, which is so sad because that was 5 years ago. 5. It doesn't feel like it should be 5, but it is 5 years ago. Yeah, because this is as old as my dormouse that made me the tea. And how crazy to think that in 5 years we are still where we are with the problems that are going on. I think, you know, there is a lot going on in terms of like education to some people. Like I think myself, certainly, I think back in 2017 I wouldn't have understood, because I lived in my little rose-coloured glasses cotton wool cloud existence and had no idea about other people's lives. If it wasn't in my lived experience, then I wasn't aware of it. events since have well and truly opened my eyes, and I'm trying to educate myself on these issues and just be so aware of my privilege and try and lend my voices so that the people who need to keep shouting are just not exhausted from constantly having to do it all themselves, because we should all be shouting. It's just so powerful. It was just so well done. And this family is gorgeous. The family, love the family. There's just so much in here. And even characters where you don't like them, there are certain things that they'll sometimes do something, and then you're then like, oh, you know, I get it. I can see you trying here, which was so good. And again, I talk about this a lot more in my wrap up, but needless to say, Angie Thomas is such a fantastic writer. She really pulls you into the story and makes you care about these people, and will not shy away from talking about stuff that's really hard. I think one of the most powerful things in here, apart from the obvious, was just the idea of someone who is white just consistently being in denial that they're being racist, like just understanding the kind of the toxicity within society, and how actually you don't get to talk about certain subjects because they are used against people and they are used to vilify and push people down. So you don't get to talk about that because that's not your place, and that's fine. And people need to listen. And I think that's the key thing in here. Like, if that character had like sat down and gone, I don't understand, but please tell me, like another character did, then the story kind of for them would have been different. And that's just like a tiny part of the story. That's not the main purpose of the story. But I thought it was something that I love how Angie Thomas shows like a range of stuff happening in here. And I just thought it was so powerful and so good. And I'm so annoyed that I can't watch the film because it's not available on like the channels and things that I have. Because I think I'd really love to see the film now. So, but yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. If you haven't read it, please read it. Please read it, please read it, please read it. It's so good. And I can't wait to read more by Angie Thomas. And that's it. There we go. That is January stats done and dusted. And it is a lot longer than usual on this video. I think because I had a lot of explaining to do. Also possibly because it's been a while since I've done a video, so I think I just enjoyed chatting. I can't help myself. So thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, leave me a megaphone for the hate you give. Shout it out. Black Lives Matter. Megaphone, please. To let me know that you're here. And obviously I'd love to chat about all these books, share your thoughts. Let me know what your stats have been. If you've made goals for yourself, are you hitting those goals? I'd really love to hear, because you know I love a chat. Happy reading, everyone.